Pokemon is more than spreadsheets and numbers. If you've seen the anime, you know how unpredictable the battles can get. No matter who's squaring off against who, there are tons of factors at play that could sway the tide in any random direction, and that is what makes battles so exciting to watch. But when you play one of the mainline Pokemon games, you can look at a matchup and confidently say there's no mathematical way that Pokemon A can defeat Pokemon B. I want to do away with that. Battles are chaotic, frantic, about keeping your cool when the pressure is on, and you should feel that when you're in one. Mainline Pokemon games are a joy I've experienced for 20 years of my life, but I just don't feel the soul in the system. This video is about how I would improve/adjust the game to make it more dynamic like the anime, an endeavor I'm very passionate about apparently. Number 1, expanding on Pokemon's natures and new training obstacles. Right now, your Pokemon has a nature that affects its stat growth and nothing else. The adjective means nothing. Whether a Sandile is jolly or adamant, it still bites the same way. It's a tacked-on word with no impact on a Pokemon's personality because Pokemon don't have personalities in these games. They're robots made of code. So how do we work towards injecting a little more essence into the lives of these animated sprites? It could be something as simple as giving them different battle animations based on their nature. A timid Pikachu should enter the fray with a different physical attitude than a bold one. And by the way, these are all suggestions that don't take into account how long it would take to implement. Like, sure, 25 different battle animations per unique Pokemon is probably a lot to draw out, but ambition is the name of the game here. Let's take it even further. I want to see unique training obstacles that need to be overcome based on that Pokemon's personality. In the black and white anime, there's a small arc where Ash's Oshawott can't aim its Aqua Jet because it's afraid of opening its eyes underwater. That's something you have to work through. Every NPC in the games goes on and on about how important it is to strengthen the bond with your Pokemon, like how, getting a haircut or giving it a massage. Put your missions where your mouth is. Introduce certain training events as hurdles to progress that, when jumped over, really deepen your connection. If you help your Pokemon through a situation like that, you will feel more attached to it. That I can guarantee. If we use the previous example of Ash's Oshawott, let's say a similar training obstacle pops up. Oshawott can't aim its Aqua Jet. As a result, Aqua Jet's accuracy in-game drops down to 50%. This becomes an event in your game that isn't mandatory. Oshawott will eventually correct itself given enough time, but if you take on the responsibility of working through this with Oshawott, not only will you lose this negative effect faster, but in addition to increasing your Pokemon's friendship, maybe you'll get some kind of reward as a bonus. Maybe Aqua Jet has a little more base power, or it becomes unavoidable like Swift because of the confidence you've just instilled in your partner. For those of you worrying about balance in competitive modes, any training bonuses or extra effects would not apply to multiplayer. This is just to make you feel like your party of partners is a group of real, dynamic, and alive creatures, and it will encourage you to think of them more as friends and less like stats on a graph. Number 2, the basics of a new battle system. Right now, you can win battles without even looking at your screen. Have your 3DS on the table while you're reading a book and just absentmindedly tap the move that guarantees you the win. I say no more! A real Pokemon battle keeps you on your toes, exercises your brain, and makes you sweat bullets. As much as I am usually not a fan of this game mechanic, I think you gotta put some quick time events in there. Be it short windows of time to decide moves to use that'll counter or nullify what your opponent is trying to do, to quick button presses to slightly reduce damage or prevent a critical hit or dodge entirely. And before you're all like, boo, dodging is lame and annoying and free, remember that when you watch the show, just because the trainer says dodge it doesn't mean the Pokemon is actually capable of dodging it. In a battle, you're gonna be able to dodge your opponent's attacks. That's just part of how defense works. You don't pull an Iris's Dragonite in the beginning and just stand there and tank ×4 damage moves. So because dodging is a necessity, you have to introduce a system that makes it not broken. And I propose a meter similar to fighting games, like an energy meter that fills up and drains as stuff happens in battle. Having your Pokemon dodge an attack uses up energy, makes it more vulnerable to the next attack. I also want to introduce follow-up attacks. You see this in the anime all the time. One Pokemon attacks, the other successfully defends, then that Pokemon does a retaliation attack, or one Pokemon breaks another's defenses and then does a second attack in a row to really bring the hammer down. These follow-up attacks would also be governed by the energy meter. You can choose to pile on the damage during certain openings, but that leaves your Pokemon too tired to dodge a subsequent attack from your opponent. Checks and balances, baby. Number 3, moves leveling up and countering attacks. Maybe you've seen Pokemon the first movie. Two Venusaur are battling. One uses Razor Leaf, the other uses Vine Whip. The Vine Whip slaps away the leaves and nullifies the attack. This type of thing is nowhere to be found in-game, short of using Dig or Fly to dodge an impending hit. There are no dynamic instances of two moves being affected by each other in this way. Why not? Because the games are relegated into static turns, two moves are never used at the same time. I think that's a wasted opportunity for tons of added synergy, and this is where moves leveling up comes into play. In a dynamic adventure experience, your Pokemon is going to learn new tricks as it goes along based on the battles it participates in. The more it uses a move, the more proficient it will get with it. For example, if Squirtle uses Water Gun enough times, it could gain a percentage chance to stop certain projectile-based attacks in their tracks. Maybe you could restrict it to certain types, like using Water Gun on enough Fire-type Pokemon makes it able to stop Embers and Flamethrowers, but also vice versa. A Flamethrower can be trained to overpower certain water moves because too often a type advantage spells certain victory, and we should take steps to ease up on that. It's all about taking the Pokemon's unique experiences and using them to shape the foundation of its skills. Moves could have set upgrades, or you could give them skill trees based on completing challenges. Pokemon Conquest experimented a bit with move ranks, but they didn't really have noticeable effects aside from slightly boosting power and accuracy. To sum it up, I'm basically thinking if Pokken Tournament was less of a fighting game and more of a real-time chess match. You wouldn't have direct control over your Pokemon, but the commands you give it are responsive in nature, and two great trainers battling each other would see a lot of ties and counters. Number 4, it's not just moves, and the environment is a factor. During Ash's battle with Valerie in X and Y, her Sylveon uses its ribbons to entangle Fletchinder and stop it in its tracks. This is not a move, and Clement even says during it, like, Pokemon battles aren't just about trading moves, or something like that. The point is, you see that all the time too. Someone will start their strategy by making their Pokemon jump really high in the air, or they'll use their speed to make their opponent dizzy, or use their opponent's strength against them. Timing is also important. In Clement's gym battle, Ash's Hawlucha waits for Heliolisk to get close and open up its frills before surprising it with a high jump kick. Some moves will work better based on the distance between Pokemon. If an enemy Eevee has to run the full length of a football field in order to tackle, you'll probably see that coming and be able to dodge or counter. Conversely, if you're using a move that takes a bit to charge up, you'll probably get interrupted if your opponent is close enough. Number 5, better gym leaders. Gym battles never feel like they have any weight to them, and it's mostly because of the Pokemon the creators set them up to use. They just always feel so basic, and most of the time they have absolutely no recourse against Pokemon you use that have a type advantage. If you're gonna commit yourself to only using one type, you should know what your weaknesses are and make an effort to prevent them from being utterly exploited. I'm tired of gyms that have 3 Pokemon where 2 of them are the same and the third is just an evolve form, and no gym leader should ever have only 2 in the party. That's a glorified trainer battle. Leaders should use the best Pokemon of their type with an appropriate level. Sorry, Faulkner, your level 9 Pidgeotto is an impossibility. Can I interest you in a Murkrow or something feasible? I'm proud of Bugsy's Scyther, but he's using Kakuna when one of his underlings has a Beedrill. What is up with that? At least outshine your minions. Gym battles would also become more challenging if they followed the anime's usual rules. You should each select 3 Pokemon and duke it out like you're in the battle tower. Anyone can beat a gym leader if it's 6 against 3. Number 5, more team attacks in team battle modes. So I just watched Ash's battle against Olympia, the psychic gym leader in the XY series, which is the last thing I'll be able to see because Netflix cuts off the catalog right there, which I agree with, because why would I want to see the 8th gym battle or the Kalos League after that? It's not like that's what the entire show has been building up to. Anyway, I won't spoil much because Pokemon battles tend to put me on the edge of my seat when I watch them, so I want to preserve that excitement for any of you that have yet to see it. But basically, it's a double battle between 2 Meowstic and Ash's Talonflame and Frogadier. At one point, Frogadier gets paralyzed, and sometime later when it's trying to use Cut, it kind of stumbles because it's real hard to move when you're paralyzed. Ask anyone in a wheelchair. And so to help out, Talonflame carries Frogadier on its back while it still has its Cut prepared and just dive bombs the Meowstic so we can use it on them. We need access to team attacks like that. Not only that, but in double battles you often see one of Ash's Pokemon stepping in to tank an attack meant for the other one. There should be that too. I mean, just because you select a target for your move doesn't mean that's who you're gonna hit. Battles shouldn't be so cut and dry. And while that has the potential to make for some real frustrating losses, that's the game, man. That's the show, which should be the game. Until they get the tech to make an entire giant VR Pokemon world for us to put our headsets on and inhabit and become the real trainers we've always wanted to be, which by the way, that system would use the anime's rules because otherwise the whole thing would feel lifeless and dead. Until that happens, we can only live vicariously through our small child avatar selves. And that would be way more fun if it felt like we were making these great strategy plays all the time instead of just mashing the A button to win. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Also, feel free to put in the comments what you would add to the Pokemon games to make them more lively and dynamic, and I'll see you guys next time.